the biggest message I got was that the point of this human experience is joy. You get to follow what you want to do in life, follow your purpose. And one of my favorite expressions is vibe up or vibe out. As you raise your vibration, as you start to come more into yourself, I call it coming online, when you are finding your confidence, your power, your truth. The people in your life are going to either ride with the version of you that is growing because they are growing too, or don't see it to be a threat, or both, and beyond, or they're going to vibe out because they're not at that frequency match anymore, because your frequency and vibration and energy has changed.
Was there a shift in the way that you ran your business, knowing what you knew after you came back from Egypt, being that person that was reborn?
Yes.
Did you come to leadership differently? Did you come to achievement differently?
We have to have the right resources and support to keep us accountable, so that we don't fall back into the neuroplasticity that has been wired into our brains, which is going to happen because we've become who we have become based on our schooling, our parents, our environment, our patterns. And with new awareness, you can make different choices. I'm not here to tell you, believe what I believe. It's really an invitation for you to figure out what makes sense to you and what really is the light inside of you, which is so deeply personal. It's like the most personal journey one can take. Like, how do we make this world a better place with how we show up right now and create a better future for generations beyond us to inherit? Because I believe that we are all that powerful.
Welcome to the Jen Gottlieb Show.
Hello, friend. Welcome back to the Jen Gottlieb Show. I'm so happy you're here. And I'm so happy about this episode that you're about to listen to. I interviewed my good friend, Jessica Zweig, about her new book, The Light Work. But more importantly, this episode was not just about the book. This episode was about this woman's incredible transformation and her incredible journey from burnout to having a spiritual awakening that completely transformed her brand, her business, and the way that she lives her life. I met Jessica back in 2020 when we were all on Clubhouse all day and all night for hours and hours. And I don't know if you remember, if you know, you know, the Clubhouse time. But Jessica was just incredibly, I was in awe of her. I was, in fact, and we talked about this at the beginning of the episode, I was a little intimidated by her. She was such a boss. She ran an unbelievably successful branding agency, which she ended up selling. She had an international best-selling book called SimplyBe. All of her posts and content were just so beautiful, and she just looked like she was on top of the world, achieving every award. She had 30 team members. She was just crushing it. And I didn't know this, but now I do after having this conversation with her and after reading her book. During that time, she was severely depressed and headed for a big burnout. And this book was born out of that. This book was born out of her going on a trip to Egypt and rediscovering herself in a massive spiritual awakening. Now, if you're not into the quote unquote woo-woo spiritual stuff, I really encourage that you still listen to this episode, because I wanted to make this a conversation where it's like, if you're curious or you want to dip your toe or you just like hearing inspirational stories about how someone reinvented themselves, that's what this episode really is about. And if you do want to go a little bit further, if you are curious in meditation, visualization, manifestation, spirituality in all forms, and like your divine feminine, the difference between being in your feminine and your masculine energy, all of that stuff, I had Jessica unpack that for us because she is an expert like no other. She lives this work. She's transformed her life through this work. And I'm really excited to introduce you to her in this episode. It's very profound, the conversations that we had. And it was also a really cool example of what happens when two women meet each other on the internet, are both intimidated by one another, and finally get into the same room and just want to fully support each other. I love these stories, and I want more of this to be happening, especially with us women. So without further ado, please strap your seatbelts on. If you're in the car, put your earphones on. If you're taking a walk, if you're in the gym, turn up the volume, take a nice deep breath, and listen up, because this episode is going to rock. Here you go. Jessica Zweig. Jessica Zweig, welcome to the show.
Jen Gottlieb, I feel like I'm having an out-of-body experience being in the flesh with you. I feel a sisterly connection to you through the ethers. You are doing the light work already, blow me away with it. And to have the opportunity to be in your studio is like a dream.
Thank you, my friend. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so grateful that the audience gets to hear from you today. I'm obsessed with this book. I've been obsessed with you literally since we met, and I have to share how we met with everybody because I know there's somebody listening right now that met a friend that they are in love with from Clubhouse.
100.
So we met on Clubhouse back in 2020 when everyone was spending every waking minute on that app. I'm telling you, every minute.
I was upset. I thought Clubhouse was like the future.
Same.
I was obsessed with that because we were all stuck at home.
Yeah.
And we were all probably in our scrubs with no makeup and dealing with, all the things we were dealing with quarantining. And we could just talk to people. Mm-hmm. And those conversations were really rich, actually.
Yeah.
And there were, everyone was on it. And it also kind of opened up the world to new people you didn't know yet. And I remember hearing your voice. I was like, that girl's voice. There's power behind that voice. And we had a couple rooms. You
have the rooms.
Yeah.
They were like, are you in my room? Want to come in my room? There's a whole lingo. I'm resetting the room. Remember that? You're a moderator. I'm going to bring you up to mod. Want to mod?
We're my panel.
Yeah.
Did you get a cue?
Yeah, exactly. Don't raise hand. I'm modding your. Okay. So those of you that know, if you know, you know. If you don't know, sucks for Clubhouse because I think they had an opportunity to sell their company when it was really hot and they didn't.
And they didn't.
All right. But anyways, that's how Jessica and I know each other. And now circle back to today. She's launching a new book, Lightwork. And I want to talk about the journey because from that moment when we met originally, when I met you, I want to just take it back for a second from my viewpoint of you.
Yeah.
You had an agency.
Did.
You had a branding agency. You had a book, SimplyBe. It was a best-selling book. And you were achieving. I was like, whoa, this girl is a powerhouse boss lady. Like I looked at you and it was one of those things where I bet we were looking at each other like, oh my God, I was a little intimidated by you.
I was intimidated by you.
There you go.
We have to
have this conversation. Ladies, just listen up because sometimes this is happening and you don't realize it. I was on my end thinking, I can't talk to her or be friends with her because she's too cool and successful for me. And I was shy and nervous.
Same experience with you. I was like, she is so smart. She's so accomplished. She knows her shit. We were both in the personal branding space and the things that were coming out of your mouth were kind of like things that I say, but I'm like, but she's kind of saying them differently, but better, like comparing.
Same.
And underneath it, we felt the same way.
This is a really important moment.
It is, for women to hear.
To a reminder that never underestimate what the other person is thinking in response to you. So we were both thinking the same thing about each other. And now finally we're here having the vulnerable, open conversation.
Yeah.
And like, oh, so cool.
Yeah.
So I want you to take us to that moment in time in your life because I think that that's a good timestamp to start at.
Yes.
It's 2020. You have this successful branding agency. What was life like for you then?
So it's important let's go back to when I started the agency, which was the year 2017. And I had started and failed a business right before that one that I also actually ran for 7 years. That business was critically successful, but left me in financial scarcity. I opened my first book, Be, with the story of going to my parents at 33 years old, having them to pay my phone bill for me because I had no money. And it was a really traumatic life event, as it would be for anyone to technically go broke. And so I licked my wounds in a corporate job, paid off my debt, and decided to start this agency in quotations because it was really just me. It was a one-woman consultancy. I have a little tattoo on my wrist that says SimplyBe. And I inspired it after the tattoo. The tattoo came first. And this was in 2017 when like Gary Vee was really hot and like personal branding was this sort of novelty, but like new thing. And it was sort of when the world woke up and was like, we should all be on social media.
Yeah.
And my business blew up in 18 months. I had made over $1 million in revenue. I was scaling it so fast. About 4 years in, I had a team of 10. I wrote that book, Be, that was coming out right around the Clubhouse moment, which was, I was using it to promote the book. It launched in early 2021. I had about 9-10 people at the beginning of that year. And then by the end of that year, I had 30. My business just expanded at a rate that I could never have predicted. It was a #1 best-selling book. I, opened 2 offices. I was serving over 600 clients during that time. I was winning awards and getting press and there was this back to that moment of, true scarcity. I thought I was in abundance. I was like, oh, I'm making all this money. I'm finally like safe. But I hadn't really healed that trauma response in my body. And I was really in a state of survival. You know, and like there's that phrase like more money, more problems, like Biggie Smalls. Like the bigger my business got, the more I had to hold up the sky. And I was the main rainmaker. And then I was the spokesperson for the book. And then I was the podcast host. And then I had to let go of half the leadership team that I hired up so quickly because they weren't the right people. And then I was managing my staff while pitching to clients. And so from the outside in, I mean, I will say, I'll go back to 2017. I believe that every single person should have a personal brand. I think that your brand is your value. It is how you articulate your worth, that every single person deserves to be seen. And I was so embodied in that mission and purpose. And in many ways, like that's why it, I think, clicked as well, because the brand was clear. But I didn't have an awareness of how unconsciously hooked in I was to the hamster wheel of hustle. The world was telling me I was winning, keep going. Look at all of these accolades. And I wasn't really I talk about this in my book, in my feminine vibration.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah.
What that means.
Yeah.
So, and how did you realize that you weren't in your feminine vibration?
Yeah.
How do you tell the difference? And like, where were you in that moment? Like, oh, I'm not in my feminine. I wouldn't, necessarily know what that would feel like.
Sure. Let's just zoom up for a second. And when we say feminine and masculine, we're not really talking about gender. We're talking about values. We're talking about energy. And the world that we live in really values the masculine. The masculine values include creation, action, building, assertion, leadership, strategic thinking, forward motion, confidence. And I think a lot of women, I think it's an incredible time to be a woman entrepreneur. We are rising and building businesses and making more money than we have. But because we're living in a society that really overvalues all of those things I just mentioned and actually devalues the values of stillness, beauty, trust, surrender, allowance, receiving, receptivity, community, collaboration, empathy. I could go on.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't want to make a broad statement like I'll speak for myself. Those values didn't make me money. Those values weren't serving my business. I didn't have time, frankly, more than anything, working 80-hour work weeks, building a huge company, to practice being in when I say feminine vibration, my slow, my gentleness, my rest, my ease. And truly, I think the biggest flex of the feminine is receptivity, which is like, it's already done. I don't have to go hunt it, chase it, grip for it, prove it. It's already done. And that realization, Jen, like I didn't get to that realization until I actually experienced a full-on burnout and breakdown in 2022 when it was exactly 1 year after my book launch. Mm-hmm. And my husband and I were living in Chicago, and we moved down to Nashville. This is an important point I like to make, because we were living in this like concrete city with all of this stimulation, and we rented a house on 10 acres of land in Nashville on an Airbnb where we wanted to move there, checking it out. And I get down to this house in January, and it's so still and it is so quiet. I can hear my thoughts for the first time. And I just actually unraveled that winter. I couldn't really leave the house. I was unable to shower and socialize, and I was crying all the time. I'm just like, I just think I'm tired, and I'm like letting my body just soak into this slower pace. And then I had a very pivotal session with my therapist, and she diagnosed me with depression because I was so physically depleted from the hustle. And that really set me on a deep journey over the next, I would say, 18 months, 2 years, to really not only heal my body and my nervous system, but to really look at where all of that was coming from. Mm-hmm. And it led me to write this book. It led me to Egypt. It led me to sell my business.
So let's talk about that So first of all, thank you for sharing all of this with us, because I know that I can see it in myself. So I know that there's a lot of, especially women, but a lot just entrepreneurs in general, that we feel like we need to be accomplishing and hustling all the time, that there is no time for rest. There is no, I even feel this sometimes, like, oh my God, if I'm resting, I feel this anxiety of I need to be doing something.
I work with that too.
I need to be doing something. I'm not doing enough. Oh my gosh, I need to be multitasking right now. If I'm walking, I need to be listening to a podcast. If I'm laying here, I need to be listening to a book or reading a book, right? It's in us a lot, and especially a lot of the people that are listening to a show like this might be experiencing it. So thank you for sharing. I just think bringing light to it, not necessarily maybe even finding the answers right now, but just bringing light to it and making sure people know that they're not alone. Like, this is a thing that's happening.
Yes.
Maybe just acknowledging it is the first step before you get to a point where you're experiencing a severe depression and a breakdown because you're forced to just be with your thoughts.
Yes.
And so you have this moment with your therapist and you have this realization of, I'm breaking down.
Yes.
And was the sale of the business right after that, or was Egypt right after that? Because I want to talk about Egypt.
Yeah.
Egypt's a pivotal moment.
It is a pivotal moment. Thank you you've really read my book, girl. So to make a long story short, I was diagnosed with situational depression. My therapist recommended I explore medication. I got referred to a holistic psychiatrist who could diagnose me. And he looked at me, and I think this is actually very important to share with your audience. He said, I'm not going to give you medication. I was open to it. I was feeling like such death. I'm like, put me on a prednisone, whatever it took. And he's like, you don't need that. He goes, you need to start sleeping. You need to look at your hormones, because I was all out of balance from the stress and the cortisol and the not sleeping. And I did a ketamine protocol, which is approved. You can do it in a doctor's office, psychedelic modality that can typically go into like an infusion, like an IV. I did 6 treatments, 2 weeks in a row. And what it essentially does, ketamine, is it reduces the inflammation in your brain, because depression is a physical symptom, which creates the emotional output. Your brain isn't functioning right. In order to get it to function right, the inflammation-free radicals have to go down. And that's what ketamine did. Ketamine was miraculous. I got my brain back, but it didn't really, I say this in my book, while ketamine healed my depression, it didn't heal my habits. And I went right back into the hamster wheel. I had to. My business was still 30 people and 600 clients. I had to. So I had very serendipitously, by the divine grace of the universe, that's what I believe, I had planned a trip to the country of Egypt at the end of that year. So about 6 months after ketamine. And, I don't want to over glorify it. And I say in my book, like, I'm not here to convince you to buy a plane ticket to go to Egypt. My book is really here to give you these keys. That's why there's a key on the cover, right here and right now. But Egypt was a complete death of my identity and my ego. And I walked onto that plane, the woman you met on Clubhouse, bright yellow hair, the fake eyelashes, the bright yellow suit. And I love that girl. I loved her fake eyelashes and her bright blonde hair. But that identity of that girl that felt like she had to grip her way to the top, I left her there. She didn't come home with me. And that was due to some very significant experiences I had in some of these temples. So I've been to 35 countries. I love to travel. This was not your typical international trip. It was a spiritual pilgrimage, which you are getting up really early. You're being guided in a small group by, these mystics that have a real deep understanding of the history and the ancient wisdom that lives in that land. And one temple after the next temple, you're having these, they seem like psychedelic experiences, but you're on actually no medicine. You're totally coherent. And you're hearing things and you're seeing things and things are happening to your body. And it was towards the second half of my trip, I went to one particular temple, which is the temple called Dendera. And it is the goddess of Hathor's temple. And she is the goddess of bliss. And she's my girl. And I had what can only be defined as being struck by white lightning. And I completely dissolved beyond the planet. And I started hearing a chorus of voices And they gave me very specific messages. And I remember them because I wrote them down in my phone the second I got back on the bus. I was like, I will never forget what I heard. And without going into too much detail, because it's all in the book, the biggest message I got was that the point of this human experience is joy, is to actually enjoy it. Like, you're missing it, Jessica. You're missing it by focusing on your spreadsheets and Instagram followers and payroll and what other women are doing in your space and the lift of employees and all of the things that were like dragging me down. And they said to me, like, this is verbatim what I heard. They were like, you get to have sex. You get to eat chocolate. You get to kiss your dogs. You get to wear cute clothes. You get to follow what you want to do in life, follow your purpose. If you don't enjoy your human experience for you, will you please enjoy it for us? Because you've missed the plot. And, a lot of really wild and significant things happened to me in the days after that moment. But that information changed my DNA. I feel like it changed my system. And I came back from Egypt new, literally new. And it was in the months following that I actually got the book deal for this. Mm-hmm. I wrote this in 3 months. Truly didn't use a ghostwriter, AI. No shame if something from a higher power like came through me and I wrote that in 3 months. And then I hosted some retreats just for fun because I was like, I want to be with women and like talk about business and joy and spirituality and feminine energy. And like, let me just do this for me. Those retreats sold out like overnight, basically. And then in July of 23, Hawk Media called me and said, we're interested in buying your company. And it just was the right time. I think, just for the entrepreneurs out there, I think 2 things, and you probably understand this wholeheartedly, Jen. Your business has to be two things need to be in place when you are about to sell your company. I believe your business has to be a true asset that can run without you. And I had built SimplyBe to that point after 7 years. And you as the founder have to be really, really ready to let go. And I was there.
Yeah.
So, Cliff's Notes, kind of.
You're listening to The Jen Gottlieb Show.
It's all connecting for me. Now I feel like, now that you're telling me it, like I got a version of it from the book and what I could piece together from listening to you on podcasts and thinking about that whole version of this, the whole story, because I met you in 2020 and I watched this whole thing happen. Yeah. I watched it on social media. Nowadays you can watch that. Yeah. And it's fascinating. I please go follow Jessica on social and you can watch the transition happen. And it was amazing and it was magical. And there was, what it looked like to me was you cracked open.
I did.
And the light inside of you was able to come out. Even just like your whole essence of who you are. It's not even the branding, the clothes, everything like changed, but it really was a light inside of you, a different Jessica that started to come out in all of your videos and all of your content. And just in general, you were like set free.
Yeah.
And when that started to happen after you got back from Egypt, was there a shift in the way that you ran your business, even for that little short time that you had it before you sold it? Because I'd like to hear about that part. Knowing what you knew after you came back from Egypt, being that person that was reborn.
Yes.
Did you come to leadership differently? Did you come to achievement differently in that moment in time?
Yes. Wonderful question. So I think it's really important for all those listening, because I say that your business is, if you have a team, your business is only as good as your team. And it had taken me 7 years to get my team right. It was a lot of attrition and when you grow that fast. So I can only share this next part of, you answer that question with giving credit to my integrator. So I had put in place basically a COO.
Yep.
Who had come in a few months before Egypt. She knew how burnt out I was. She was a unicorn. And I came back from that trip And this is actually a really great story. So we had our one-on-one scheduled like 2 weeks off. I was out for 2 weeks, and she said, I've been thinking about this meeting, Jessica, and I could tell you every little thing that happened while you were gone, but that would just be bringing you back into the fray. So I'm not going to update you on anything, and let's just talk about Q1 and what we want to accomplish in 2023. And this is an important point. I could have said, no, tell me, I want to know. Like, how did this person feel? How is this person performing? Is this client happy? And I surrendered in that moment. It was a practice. She started to pluck me out of meetings for my own time that I was typically in charge of leading those meetings. I was no longer even invited to them. And there was resistance, I think, because I was, I'm a Virgo rising, so I'm very controlling. Like, it's part of my personality. But I set the intention. My word for the year of 23 per Hathor was joy. And I had a great team around me that was supporting me, that wanted me to be up here. They had actually wanted me to be up here the whole time, but it was touch and go as we were growing. But I made a commitment to myself that joy was my job that year. And so I did close my computer before 5. I didn't work before 10 if I could help it. I tried to take Fridays for me. I spent more time outside and nature, took calls on walks, tried to really calibrate my nervous system and not be so hooked in with hustling. And I had set up a really amazing sales team that was selling on behalf of me, so I wasn't always the rainmaker. We sort of constructed me as the CEO to be like the bookend. Like, I'd come in, bring in the deal, my team would work it, and if they needed me to come in at the end to close it, I would. But I wasn't holding up that sky with every single prospect anymore. So a lot of things shifted in my business, and I had a great tactical structure around me, but I, as Jessica, had to allow it. And that's really a value of the feminine, again, allowance and letting go and letting it flow.
Do you ever find yourself having to have a reminder of that? Like, you slip back into the old way, or after Egypt, it was like, nope, I'm transformed.
Oh, I'm in the middle of a book launch, babe.
Yeah.
So it's like,
so let's talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I had such a relished year in 23, and it was so healing, and the business sold, and I rebranded my life, and I hard launched at the beginning of the year, rebranded my podcast. And then in the last few months, yes, things have gotten really, really, really intense. I was just telling you, I took a break. I planned a vacation about a month before my book launch for a week. I unplugged, disconnected, which felt a little risky, but I know that my mental health and my body's energy is the key to my success.
That's right.
So if that's not full, then nothing's going to work. I have been really grateful and blessed that I've brought in, I'm building up my third business. I have a tiny team of about 5 people. They're amazing. I knew what to look for when it especially came to my integrator, somebody that's like, you need to be up and out of the fray. And I'm a great teammate, and I like to be arm in arm with my team. But that's on the business side. I'll say very transparently, I haven't really talked about this. I have a really amazing therapist, and she checked in on me about a month or 2 ago because she hadn't heard from me. And I was like, she's like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm good. I'm in a book launch. I'll be in touch in August when it's over. Because my time. And I came back to myself about a few weeks after that. I'm like, I need her actually right now in my book launch. So I scheduled an appointment with her weekly my point is we have to have the right resources and support to keep us accountable so that we don't fall back into the neuroplasticity that has been wired into our brains, which is going to happen because we've become who we have become based on our schooling, our parents, our environment, our patterns. And with new awareness, you can make different choices. Is it perfect every time, every day? No, I'm in it. And I have lots of moments of stress and long days, but it's a season. I'm very clear that this is a season, and I'm constructing the future of my platform and my business so that I have space. That's a core value for me, is space, freedom. And I love to work, and I also love to rest. And I had a conversation with a friend at the beginning of this year, kind of knowing what I was going to be going into with this launch. And I said to her, I'm really trying to reconcile my deep, deep ambition with my deep, deep desire for slowness. And she said, you have, because of your past trauma, have made working hard something that feels depleting, because it has been. But you love to work. You love what you do. And so it can be really generating. And that's what I said to you when I first walked in, because it was like, you were like, how's it all going? And I was like, it's this, it's that, it's this, but it's fun. I'm choosing to have fun. Joy is a choice. Fun is a choice. So it's been a lot of the things, and, you know, I'm embracing it because I really believe in this book, and I believe in conversations like this.
I love it. I love this conversation. And I love what you just said about energizing conversations and doing things that energize you, because people ask me a lot of the time if I ever get burnt out.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I've never had like a big breakdown burnout moment before like that, like what you were expressing. I've definitely had bouts of feeling sad or feeling overwhelmed. I have a therapist. I've been on antidepressants for, I think, over 10 years now, taking the exact same medication for 10 years, because I really battled it when I was young. But I find that we can't always do all the things that energize us all the time.
Yeah.
But if we can do the things that energize us, like we were having this conversation a little bit earlier with speaking, that energize us the majority of the time, or we make sure that we're intentional about sprinkling them in.
Yes.
Like treadmill moments, there's this concept of treadmill friends versus couch friends or sofa friends. And I think it's George Mack, you guys DM me or message me if I got that wrong. Somebody quoted it. I've heard it on a couple podcasts now. And I love this concept because you can actually think of it with treadmill moments and experiences and sofa moments and experiences. So a treadmill friend is like a friend that you hang out with and you have a conversation with. And after you're done, you just feel so energized. You could go run on a treadmill. Like, you could be so tired, but you have that energizing convo. Or you got sofa friends. And those are the type of people in your life or experiences, you could swap it out, that drain you. And when you're done with that, you're like, oh my God, I want to sleep for years. Like, I'm so tired and exhausted. And I find that for me, as long as I'm incorporating more moments of joy, right? Treadmill moments, conversations that light me up, tasks that I do that I love, like speaking or podcasting or going and working out and doing the things that give me energy, I can do the other stuff, the sofa stuff, without having burnout, because you don't get burnt out when you're doing things that you love to do all the time.
So beautiful. It's so, so true. And I think so important to remember that we have, and I didn't know this, at least for some of my time running SimplyBe, I felt because the business had scaled so much and it was so out of kind of control at certain points, when you grow that fast, just things are chaotic, and felt like I was a bit of a victim to it. And that I didn't really have agency over compartmentalizing my life, my days, my work, my hours to things that filled my own cup. And you're building something so beautiful. What you and Chris are up to, it's like so insanely impressive. And seeing you on these stages, it's I can see that you're having a lot of treadmill experiences that fuel you, I think, across, this is my vantage point, looking at it outside in, across all of it. And that is one thing that as you're talking, I'm like, I'm so clear on what lights me up and what doesn't. And this will be my third business, and I have new language and I have new tools on how to articulate that to my team, to my husband, to myself. I have a whole new spiritual practice around how I take care of myself in those couch moments. Yeah. I love that metaphor.
It's good. All right. I have to ask you this question, because when you, in any way, like have any kind of awakening, even if you're just dipping your toe into personal development, like you just started listening to personal development podcasts, or you just read your first personal development book. I remember this and I was so jazzed and I felt like I became a new person.
Which one was it? Do you remember the book?
Okay, so the first book that I read in entrepreneurship, I don't even think it was a self-help book. It was Girl Boss by Sophia.
Oh my God, I loved that book.
I read that with like one of my regular friends. Like we were just totally I don't want to say normal regular, but we she's not a mindset, personal development, entrepreneurial kind of a gal. We were just vacationing in Puerto Rico. I'm like, I'm gonna read this pink book. And I read this pink book and I'm like, oh,
that was a really good book.
I want to be an entrepreneur. And that changed everything and it put me down the rabbit hole. So that was like the the door was opening for me.
That's
that
amazing.
like popped my cherry a little bit, and then it was done. But you had this awakening on a big scale, right? But I want to make sure that the listener that's like, oh, I just started listening to podcasts. I just started my first business. I just went to my first personal development conference. And now I think differently. I do differently. I have different intentions. But everybody around me thinks and does the same as I used to. And it's very difficult to be in this energy that I want to be in of abundance and enthusiasm and as optimistic as I can be.
Yeah.
And my spouse or my partner doesn't think this way, or my family or my friends are not this way. How did you, I want this from your point of view, from this big awakening that you had in Egypt, and you came back, and I can imagine your husband didn't really understand what went down. What was the transition, and how do you now navigate your environment and your friendships and your relationships?
Oh, well, we almost got a divorce.
Like, I didn't know this.
No, like, he's my person and we're in it for life.
Yeah.
We've been together for 12 years. But the 2 months after I came home from Egypt and was integrating that trip, it was really bad. And we fought constantly and had multiple emergency sessions with our relationship coach because we just were like misalignment, crash, misalignment, crash. And it just kept escalating. And, you know, if you're out there, I just want to say to your community, if you're feeling like, where's my people? Like, come find me. Like, come hang out with me on IG and listen to my podcast. I believe we really need community and like-minded community as we're going through these massive life shifts and awakenings. And I recently had a podcast on the Spiritual Hustler show of my husband came on. And the episode is called What to Do When Your Partner Isn't as Spiritual as You. And that has really been the theme of not just my marriage, but, you know, my family and even some of my friends. And I'll speak, you know, specifically back to my husband. There was a large period of my marriage with him where I was like, you need to be doing this too. Like, if you don't do this, if you don't grow at my rate, if you're not into these things, if you don't believe what I believe, I would threaten him. Like, I'm going to leave you behind. It was never like, I'm leaving you, but it was, you're going to get left behind. The point is, that's not going to work in telling your husband or your partner what to do. What I really surrendered to was that he was on his journey. I'm on mine. This works for me. I'm seeing massive life expansion and results. And I'm going to, not to prove anything to him with zero agenda, but to be the example, to be the embodied example, because actions do speak louder than words.
Yes, my friend.
And so whether that's your partner or your friends, and one of my favorite expressions is vibe up or vibe out. As you raise your vibration, as you start to come more into yourself, I call it coming online, when you are finding your confidence, your power, your truth, the people in your life are going to either ride with the version of you that is growing because they are growing too, or don't see it to be a threat, or both, and beyond, or they're going to vibe out because they're not at that frequency match anymore, because your frequency and vibration and energy has changed. And that's a beautiful thing. And it can be painful too. I don't want to negate that. When people vibe out as you're vibing up, a lot of the time that looks like, I don't know, someone quitting your company or breaking up with you or not including you anymore to certain things. It can be painful. I just want to acknowledge that if you are really focused on your own journey and your own path, and you feel in alignment to your truth and what you think you should be doing with your life and your career, then that's not a bad thing. It's a gift, actually.
Get outside of your comfort zone and into your best life, one small step at a time.
I love what you said about just being the example.
Yeah.
You can't tell anybody what to do and have them receive that and choose. It's very, very rare that happens.
Especially in a marriage.
No, especially in a marriage. I always tell this story. I think that you'll appreciate it. My dad is like my favorite person in the world. He's my bestie. And back in the day, before I met Chris, my dad and I lived in New York. My dad lived in Florida. And I would just take long, I call them wonder walks, like manifestation walks throughout New York City. And I'd have my headphones in and I would call my dad. And my dad would always be like worried about me. When are you going to meet somebody? Because I was dating, and I was like, Dad, he's out there, but I'm manifesting him. I'm going to have everything. We're going to be a power couple. We're going to start a business together. And I just created this life. And my dad would listen, and my dad would be like, sure, Jen. I'd be like, Dad, I'm telling you, the law of attraction is real. Just start like being what you want to attract. And he'd be like, okay, whatever, you know? And my dad's the best, but he was not like bought in. He's like, whatever you think, Jenny, that's fine. Okay. And now
All the things.
Now my dad calls me and says, Jenny, I'm manifesting. I just bought a lottery ticket and I'm manifesting. So how am I supposed to think about this? Am I supposed to celebrate that I won already? Like because I just showed him.
Right.
I just did it. And I was like, love you, Dad. You don't believe me? I'll show you. And I love that you said that.
Yes.
Because I think that that's the only way.
It's the only way.
And if we have to let go of some of those people in our life because we're showing and they don't like what's happening as a result and they go out on their own, which has happened to me with many, many, many relationships, then that's a chapter.
And I love that you shared that about your dad, because it doesn't always have to end with vibing up or vibing out or people, you know, having explosive arguments with your partner. Like, you can actually, not to exalt yourself, but you can be someone's teacher. Like, you don't know what you're robbing that other person of by you not standing in your truth. Mm-hmm. You know, my husband stopped drinking. My husband is on microdose mushrooms. Like, his whole life has changed. His whole body has healed. Not because I told him to do any of those things, but because he witnessed me. And, you know, even to this day, he'll be like, if I'm having a negative moment, he'll be like, the universe listens, Jessica. Words are wands. Be careful. Like, things I say.
Yeah.
You know,
that's always the most annoying moment when I'm like, oh, crap, you're so right. You win.
Exactly. But it's a beautiful reflection of like the impact we can make just by living our truth.
I love it. Yes, so much yes. All right, I want to go back to the book, and I want to talk about some of the parts of the book that you find will be the most helpful for the listeners. And this is, you know, if you're listening right now and you're like, I have not even dipped my toe into spirituality, it's woo-woo for me, like I don't get it. I know that there's a lot in here that is unbelievably powerful for real life stuff. If you can just dip your toe and connect it, because you are a successful entrepreneur, you are and you are embodying this every single day, and you're teaching it in this book in a way that's easy to understand.
Yes.
In a take it or leave it kind of a voice.
Yes.
You can read this and you can pick what you want and you can leave the rest. Mm-hmm. So I'd love for you to share some of your favorite maybe strategies in the book, just to start being a little bit more open-minded to getting in touch with your truth.
Yes.
Your authentic self.
Thank you.
Opening up that vortex to maybe see something that you aren't seeing.
Yes. Every chapter has two things at the back of that chapter: an invitation, which is a set of journaling prompts, and a key, an exercise, a meditation, a practice. So it's very applicable. I wanted it to be, and I think that's part of my gift in writing, is like taking these very esoteric spiritual concepts and like translating them like Carrie Bradshaw would, you know, very like...
That's what I love about it.
Yes.
I just got goosebumps when you said that, because that's exactly what I felt reading it. I was like, this is for everybody that wants to explore, but maybe is too afraid to dip into the hardcore stuff. Like, this is easy to understand.
Totally. Yes. I wanted it to be relatable to like the masses, you know? And again, I'm not here to tell you, believe what I believe. It's really an invitation for you to figure out what makes sense to you and what really is the light inside of you, which is so deeply personal. It's like the most personal journey one can take. And I use my own personal stories as a roadmap to help you feel less alone in that journey. There's 3 sections in the book. It starts with inner light. Second section is outer light. And the third section is future light. I wanted to start within because it's our emotions, our relationship to our bodies, our personal power, our connection to whatever we want to call source, God, the universe, that we have to, I think, get into alignment. We are the piece of the divine. This is who we were born to be. And so in order for us to move through the world in an embodied, empowered, inspiring way, we have to get right within ourselves first. Outer light is about family, relationships, friendship, money, kind of all the places our light gets tested. And then future light is actually my favorite section, which is, how do we really go change the world? Like, how do we make this world a better place with how we show up right now and create a better future for generations beyond us to inherit? Because I believe that we are all that powerful and needed. to answer your question specifically on tools, one of my favorite chapters is the body section, the body chapter. I had body dysmorphia. I had eating disorders. I had an autoimmune disorder. Like, my body and me were at war for most of my life. And then I got into my late 30s and early 40s and was like all of a sudden crushing it in business. And then I burnt out, and it was my body that had been calling out to me my whole life saying, listen to me, love me, be kind to me, build a relationship with me. And so there's a practice at the end of that chapter called the body scan meditation, where I just teach you how to actually have a conversation with your body, to learn what it's like to hear your body speak to you with certain very specific questions, and how to scan your body and how to really get in your body. Because I was so out of my body, running my agency specifically, that my entire nervous system was fried. And that's what really led me to burnout, because I wasn't in my freaking body. And so I really think it all starts in the body. I love that chapter. Another chapter I love towards the back of the book is a chapter called Gaia, which is about our planet. And, you know, what's happening to this planet is so sad. You know, the rainforest, the oceans, the atmosphere can go on, but we play a really vital role in building a more harmonic world. And it starts with our breath. Like, we breathe in, we breathe out, we're creating that, you know, oxygen rotation. We are so powerful, connected to this planet and making it a more beautiful place. But I feel like because we're, again, running in concrete cities with steel and glass, we're not really rooted and connected into her, which is causing a lot of this dis-ease and disassociation that is causing a lot of this disconnection in our lives from one another, from our true purpose, from our joy. So there's a practice in the back of that chapter where I just teach you how to ground, like how to find a patch of nature, whether it's some grass, some sand, like whatever you've got around you, and to really root down into her, Gaia, our Mother Earth, to feel safe to be here, to feel joyful and grateful to be here. And then I guess I'll end with the last, one of my favorite chapters is the chapter about money. I don't want to give too much away, but I feel like there's a lot of conversation right now, and I'm here for it. I follow these women, and I think they're bosses, talking about manifestation. And it's really a lot about visualization, mantras, affirmations, neuroplasticity, rewiring your subconscious. I'm here for all of that. But I believe that that's the content, not the context. And we have to go deeper and learn how to actually feel safe again in our bodies to be rich. And so I take you through 8 divine feminine embodiments of true wealth. And it's a really, really, I think, new take on manifestation.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
I wanted you to share all of that because I want you all to know how chock full of actual takeaways you're going to get, tools that you can use regularly in your life in this book.
Yes.
You're going to enjoy the stories. It's a fascinating story, Jessica. And it's in real time. This has happened, this story, over the past couple of years.
Yeah, it's really fresh.
It's really, really, really fresh. And you're going to have these tools. Now, I want to ask you, which of these, I'm sure you don't do all of these every day. Because I think that somebody could look at this and read this and look at you and be like, oh my God, that is too much. I can't do all of that. Do you do all of these meditations every day? What does your routine look like for grounding, setting your day up, and reminding yourself of all this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I do a lot of it. I don't do all of it.
Tell me how you do it.
I mean, I like to get up early. Nature is a big theme in the book. I walk. Yeah. We both love to walk.
Yes.
Walking is my meditation, my exercise, my cardio. I mean, how I clear my head. I have an altar at home. I have a very sacred space in my home that has very specific things. I work with crystals. I work with angel card decks. I work with essential oils. I meditate. I connect to spirit every morning. At the least 5 minutes, if that's all I've got. I think everyone has 5 minutes to just close their eyes and get still. If I can meditate for longer, I do. I'm on a lot of Zoom calls. Once I hit the computer, I go outside multiple times a day, and I stand on the grass and with my face up to the sun to get vitamin D. and just feel my bare feet like on the grass, and just, even again, if it's for 5 minutes. You know, I have a whole section in the back of the book called the Lightworkers Resource Guide, where I have so good. Thank you. Where I've picked out my favorite go-to crystals, essential oils, oracle card decks, books to read that have taken me deeper in my spiritual journey, podcasts to listen to. So I fill my space, my free time. You know, I have a life and enjoy my friends and my marriage and my travels, but to be a light worker, I think, is a daily devotion and a commitment to keep your vibration high. Not to say that you're not going to have really dark days. I've been on so many podcasts, like, this book is titled The Light Work. I could have called it The Dark Work, because that's where we find our light, is in the dark.
Yeah.
This isn't a spiritual bypass book like Love and Light. You're going to learn some things you probably haven't read about before that feel a little out there, but they're not like woo-woo above the planet. Like, I've translated them so that they make sense to your life and how you can translate them for your relationships, your business, your body, your friendships. And so I feel like, yeah, I don't do every little thing in the book, but I certainly put all of those tools and practices in there because they have worked for me, and I've tried all of them.
It's a toolkit.
It's literally a toolkit.
I love having a toolkit because for me, I can't commit to doing all the things. Every day is different.
Sure.
Every day is different. I can't commit to doing a perfect morning routine every day anymore. It just doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
But I like having a toolkit of knowing that I have access to these certain things if I need them for a certain specific type of a day.
Yeah.
And this is what this is.
Thank you.
Read it, tag the back. What I like to do, you guys, is take pictures of like special things like that in the book, like the tools and like the strategies in the back, like where the resources.
Yep.
And I favorite them in albums in my iPhone because I never lose that. Like everything that I have is in albums in my iPhone.
That's amazing.
Photos of everything. So that's what I did with your book. And so whenever I'm feeling like I need it, like I'm just stuck today, it's usually for me at 3:00 in the afternoon, I'm stuck. Like I had my morning energy and now I don't anymore. And I go for a walk, I look at the sun, and then I'll pull out this. Is there one quick little meditation or a quick little affirmation I can say, or reminder, even just a reminder? It can be so helpful just to shift your energy for the rest of the day. You don't have to do all the things. You don't have to be perfect.
No.
Take what you want and leave the rest, and you can build upon it. It's just exploring a little bit more, going on a little journey with yourself.
And that's how we grow. And that we're all here to do. Like, my favorite word in the English dictionary is the word evolve.
That's my word of the year.
Stop, really?
Yes. Evolve and evolution. That's my word of the year.
That's an amazing word.
That's amazing.
It's my favorite word in the English dictionary. It's like what we came here to do.
Yes.
It's literally how this humanity has survived, evolution, but like our own personal soul's evolution, our life evolution.
And we're going to continue to evolve. I just had Robert Croak sitting in that chair before you, and it was a totally different conversation, but it's same theme. It's never too late to reinvent yourself.
No.
And we're going to reinvent ourselves many more times throughout this life.
Yeah.
And you'll have more books, and we'll be sitting here
Same with you, sister.
Yes, again and again with the next evolution, and that is life. All right. So you have some very special things coming up.
I do.
And I want you to share about them, because if you're still listening, it means that you can't not be at this event.
Yes.
You're clearly loving Jessica just as much as me. So let's talk about all the things that are happening for the book launch, the event, how we can support you.
Yeah. So this is coming out, I think, the Friday before my book launches. And next week, this is a little woo-woo, I'm going to go there, but I think your audience will appreciate it, is what's called Lionsgate. It's August 8th, 8/8. 8 is the number of abundance. 8 is the number of money. 8 is the number of infinite possibilities. And when we align our lives to the cosmos, when we, think about the full moon, the new moon, Mercury retrograde, the summer solstice, like these things happen as above, so below. We're impacted by the macro and the micro. So on August 8th is the biggest wealth portal of the year. It's when a new consciousness comes down from the alignment of our sun to the Sirius sun star in our galaxy. 8/8. And it's 2024, so it's 8/8/8 because 2024 equals 8. It's literally, we'll never get this again in our lifetime.
Wait, I'm taking out my phone right now and putting it in my, I'll forget. And this is the day, y'all. 8/8 is the day to make some money.
Yes, exactly. It's the day of.
I'm putting money day in here. Money day. See, it could be that easy.
We
money
look
day.
at the number 8. It's the infinity sign.
Infinity.
And that the numbers hold code. So all this to say, I'm hosting the event of the summer.
Let's go.
5 hours of wealth activations with myself, Michael Beckwith, who's the original pioneer of the spiritual space, Koya Webb, who is a wellness guru and has this massive community of Get Loved Up, and she's going to be doing breath work with us and meditation, getting us into our body so that we can receive. My friend Danielle Page, who's an astrologer, who's going to help us decode what's going on that day for real and how it applies to our businesses, our lives. I will be, of course, teaching feminine leadership and business mastery of how to scale a business in new terms.
Woo!
And you don't want to miss it. And if you come, it's $35. You get a book.
Yeah.
And you get 3 new meditations that I've created for you as well. So it's a global summit for $35. Come hang out with us all day. You want to clear your schedule. You'll get activated. I'm holding the intention that when you come to this event, you come and you look back. You're like, yeah, that's when things started to change. That's when my life started to shift. And I've created more space for joy. That's my goal.
I love this. Okay. I love having things to do after listening to a podcast, because there's so many. How many podcasts have we all listened to where we get all these ideas? And this is me every day now. I just consume too much. And I'm like, oh, I love that idea. I love that idea. I write it down and then I never do anything with it, because then I move on to the next podcast. So what you can do right now listening to this is, if you loved this and you're leaning in and you're like, I don't even know where to start, we have something for you to do to start.
Yes.
So where do they go to sign up for this event?
It's super easy. It's my name, JessicaZweig.com.
Zweig. How do you ZWEIG? Jessica Zweig. It'll be in the show notes. Don't worry.
.com/breakthrough. The event is called Breakthrough to a New You.
Beautiful. Breakthrough to a New You.
Yeah.
This was beautiful. Anything you want to leave us with?
I just really can't get over the beginning of our conversation when you were like, I was intimidated by you. And I was like, I was intimidated by you. And the beauty, actually, I didn't even mention that. There's a chapter in my book on sisterhood and how women coming together and seeing each other by virtue of the fact that we're women on the same fucking team. That is the medicine of this earth, that women are kind and loving to one another and truly support one another when we rise. And the fact that I'm here having this conversation with you is proof of that. And it's really been a deep part of my own healing journey with women. And I'm just so grateful that I was a guest on your show today. I have mad respect for you, Jen, mad respect for your community, what you've built. And to just be here to share my story is just such a gift.
This was so special.
Truly.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody, thank you for listening. I hope you got as much value as I did. If anything, this was just for me. I had a great time. I'm so grateful you came. You are my sister. Anything I can do for you. Everybody, please support Jessica and her book launch. We know how to do that. Share the book. Share the event. Sign up for the event. Get your friends to sign up for the event. Gift the book to people. Pre-order the book. That helps authors more than anything. We just want to get this message out there. It's going to help so many.
Thank you, babe. Yeah, and come find me on the socials. Don't be a stranger.
Yeah, DM her. She'll DM you back.
It's me in there, so come and say hi.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet Jen's community.
Love you guys. Thanks for watching, and see you next time on The Jen Gottlieb Show.